You hear that top? It's just a da 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 da, and it's like computer music. Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to review one of the most popular piano videos of all time. This is Patrik Pietschmann performing the main theme from Interstellar. It has amassed over 100 million views on YouTube, and there's a lot to talk about in terms of piano playing. Some of the things he does great, some things he could do a lot better, and there's some special challenges that go along with performing a piece, first of all, that wasn't written originally just for piano, but secondly, it's film music, and it's minimalist film music, and that makes it especially challenging in some certain regards. Let's just go ahead and dive right in and see what Patrik Pietschmann does with this main theme from Interstellar. Here we go. Okay, already there's lots to talk about. Now, one of the things that you'll notice in the original, if you listen to this film, is that although this is sort of a piano-based theme, there are other instruments and synths and things going on that sort of support this texture. And the problem when you translate a piece like that just to solo piano is that you have to do a little more to distinguish the notes, or it all starts to sound particularly mechanical. Now, the number one thing that I would say I noticed when I first listened to this piece is that he's performing along with a click track, which is of course removed in the final version. But you'll notice that if you play this piece, or if you set a metronome along with this piece at 100 beats per minute, you will be able to go through the entire video without losing one beat. It is incredibly stable. So he recorded this along with the metronome, and I think that's kind of a shame because it eliminates a little bit of the flexibility and the rubato, meaning the stretched time that you could use if you were not performing this along with a click track. There's absolutely no flexibility at all in the tempo. It doesn't require a lot in this piece, but as we'll see, in some places that could really be useful. What bothers me right at the beginning is that there's not enough distinction between the important notes and the not important notes. Now we start with this E in the right hand, right? And he does a nice little crescendo leading into the start of the main theme. But then this E just kind of stays there, and it's a little bit obtrusive. It's not really interesting when we listen to it. I mean, we know it's there, of course, but it needs to be more in the background because what's happening is this main theme comes in, right? These upper notes. And here, in the original recording, these are supported with a little bit of a synth layer on the top, which gives it a little bit more of a distinction between that and the repeated E's. So if you could bring out those top notes even more and really feel the connection between that top line and not so much hammering with this E in the middle, because it's just, it has to be unobtrusive. It has to be a bit in the background. And there's just too much of it continually throughout this piece. And when something doesn't change like that, you don't want to really hammer it in. You want to let it sort of fade into the background and create this sort of layering in the sound that you hear in this original version with the sort of the synth colors and the regular piano. There's more of a three-dimensionality to it, if you will, that we're missing in this performance. Let's continue on. You hear that E? Bum, bum, bum. There's not enough flexibility there. Now, another thing that you notice in the original, if you listen to the original recording, is more shaping between these notes. They go somewhere. And even though this is minimalist music, it still has to have a sense of a connection between the notes and really paying attention to the harmony. So we have this sort of harmony, which then resolves, right? This one is more intense than that one. And if you play them exactly the same, it starts to sound a bit like a machine. It starts to sound too mechanical. And, I know, of course, this piece is supposed to represent the vastness of outer space, and there is sort of that non-human component to this, but still, you can't take that completely away from music, or it just starts to sound like somebody, playing a MIDI file or something like that. It sounds too much like a computer, and that's why it's not like that in the original recording. If you listen closely, you'll hear these sort of shapings of the phrase that are, unfortunately, rather missing from this piece. And then we start with what could be called the first variation on this main theme. This Interstellar main theme is sort of a theme and variations. We have this main melody, right? And it keeps coming back in different sort of guises with, sometimes hands crossing, sometimes in the left hand, sometimes the melody in the middle or whatever. But it's always a sort of series of variations. And what's missing from Pietschmann's performance here, in my opinion, is a sense of where that main theme is all the time. He tends to play the notes as if they're sort of all equally important. So when we get to this spot, he's just playing these sort of like they are on the page. But what's actually going on here? We have the main theme in the left hand, and this is what we want to hear. We want to hear this. Look at my left hand. That has to be much more in the foreground, and these other notes, which are an accompaniment to that main melody in the right hand, have to really be put in the background. And there's too much of just not really considering any of that and just playing right over it, just playing the notes as they appear on the page. The great Leon Fleischer used to say the problem with piano playing is that all the notes look equally black, and that's true. There isn't sort of any hierarchy in the way the notes are written. You have to think about the music. You can't just play the notes on the page and expect that this is going to pop out at you. You have to put some thought into it. And so what's really missing here is this sense of feeling, where is the melody? Where is the main theme of this piece? And as you'll hear when we come to this next passage, which is this, the melody, which is still in the left hand here, is being really covered up by the right hand. He's drawing our attention to this and completely forgetting about what we're actually interested in, which is the dum, bum, right? This down below. Let's continue and you'll see what I mean. It sounds a bit computerized, right? Almost. And here, of course, like I mentioned, not only are the notes too static, but the tempo is just too static. I would really like to hear a little bit of time between the variations. So let me give you an example of what I mean. So when we go from, for example, from just taking a little bit of time to go to let it sort of gently ease into this new music instead of just going, here I have this and now I have that and it's the same. I'm just plowing straight through like a bulldozer. That's what happens when you record with a click track. You have no flexibility. It takes out all of the rubato in the playing. Let's continue on. What he does well here, I would say, is in the right hand. He does differentiate between the upper notes and the lower ones that are being hit with the thumb. And a lot of people sometimes tend to, real beginners or amateur players will do this and put too much on the thumb. And he does a good job of, sort of bring out the top notes. He could do a little more shaping in the right hand. That would be nice, but really just bringing out that left hand so we hear where the actual melody and the actual variation is. Yeah, it's just a little too static in my opinion, all over. Not enough sort of shaping. Yeah, so here, we have these repeated E's. When we take a theme like this, okay, the E every time is on the top is staying the same. So that's not really the interesting thing. The interesting thing that's happening is the change from the A to the B to the C. And don't forget, by the way, the fact that this music is written in 3/4 time. I hear no sense in his playing of a sense of meter. So like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. I hear 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that again, it makes it sound kind of like computer music. Computers don't, at least yet, don't really emphasize the meter in a human-like manner. And this is just so flat that there might as well not be any measure lines at all. You have to think about not only just how many beats are there in a measure, but what does that mean for emphasizing those beats? We emphasize the first beat, right? And it doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be there. We have to have a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I hope you'll agree with me that sounds right away 1, 2, 3, 1. Sounds right away more musical and more interesting and more alive. Let's continue on. And here, here I find it particularly offensive. It's just really the E, da 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 dum, dun 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 dun. Why not more shaping of the notes that are actually changing? So the A to B, E to C. Something like that. And then when we get to this next spot, you're going to hear what he does in the right hand, which I really don't really like, is, again, we have this thing on the top, which is completely uninteresting. I mean, it's interesting, but once we've heard it, right? We don't have to keep sort of hammering this trill into people's heads. And we get the sound that, to me, is... it's too much unchanging. Instead of showing the notes that are actually moving and are interesting, which would be this bottom one in the left hand, to the B... and so forth, and that gives it a sense of motion and life, and that's what I would really like to hear. I'll show you what I mean. Here we go. You hear that top? It's just a da 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 da, and it's like computer music or video game music, but it's not really alive in the way that it could be. Yeah, and here, what I would love to hear, there's this sort of what we call a hemiola going on. There's a strange rhythmic interaction between the right hand and the left hand. We have sort of different meters or groupings of the notes going on between the two hands. He plays this left hand sort of all the same, and I would like to hear more bass, bass, bass. Again, the changing notes, which then interacts in a really kind of cool way with the right hand, so we'd have something like this. Instead of where it's all sort of two-dimensional. I'd like to make it a little bit more three-dimensional with some more layerings of the notes throughout this section. And also the right hand, it's just sort of, also kind of too flat throughout all of this. There's not really a sense of a connection between the notes. It's more of them all being at the same dynamic. Now here, I think he could do a lot more. The melody is this is an interesting spot because the melody is hidden and it switches between the hands. So you have right hand, this A, and then it connects to the E, which we play with the left hand. The same thing going on to the B, to the E. And if you don't really show where those notes are, they kind of get covered up with everything else, sort of like this. You have to really draw our attention to where the main melody notes are. So we have A, E, A, E. And the other ones really have to be in the background. And then you get this sort of three-dimensional cool layering to the sound. Let me just play a few measures for you. Something like that, and really feeling the connection again between those melody notes and the motion between them, which is our main theme after all of this piece. That's what I would really like to hear. But he does play with a nice sort of sense of power here. Yeah, and this is the thing about film music is a lot, and particularly minimalist film music like this. It needs, when you play it as a piano solo, sometimes it needs more changes and more colors than you would have in the film, where you can support it with changing scenes and changing colors and all this stuff. But in the music, when we just have the piano version of this, sometimes it's nice to really create a sudden change in the color. And this is a place that I think he could do even more with this, because he does a really good job of, this powerful, strong, this, and then here, I think he could really do a subito piano, bringing the dynamic down really suddenly, making a big change, and it would be really, really effective in this spot, because we go from the powerful music to suddenly a completely different color. That would really, really help to bring out, and it would not only would it bring out sort of the different colors, but it would really capture the interest of the audience right away. Anybody who's listening would say, "Oh, wow, what just happened there? Cool spot." So you never want to pass up those opportunities to do something like that. Let's continue on. Here, I would like the right hand to be even more ethereal, even more in the distance, and really showing that melody in the left hand, but just like electrons floating through space or something. Very, very, very ethereal would be, I think, more effective here. Anybody else find this spot tricky to play? It's not entirely logical, right? The way the notes are constructed, I found it actually a little bit different, a little bit difficult when playing it to figure out what's going on with all those notes. And here, this is again a spot, it sounds a little bit too much like a MIDI file, like a computer recording. The notes here that we have to emphasize, again, are a little bit hidden. We've got the bass notes. I always talk about the fact that we have to emphasize the bass, but keep the notes in the middle, after the bass here in the left hand, much lighter. And in the right hand, we have these notes and this one, which are the important notes. Not every 16th note is equally important, right? So we want to play, I'm going to play this slowly so you hear it. These notes emphasize, and this one. And if we don't do that, we get a more sort of two-dimensional kind of music. We get everything, all the notes sort of stay the same, instead of having this cool layering of different dynamics within the piece. See here, it's just a little bit too much of a mush, too many notes in there. That would again be a spot, where we change register to do something really cool with the dynamic, maybe suddenly going back, a sudden piano. I think he misses some opportunities in this piece to do some really cool things with the dynamics. Yeah, and there, at the end, it just seems like it's calling out for a little bit of rubato, that we would do something like a little tiny bit of slowing down. But again, if you're stuck to the click track, you take away that whole element of expression that you could otherwise have. And, like I said, it doesn't need a lot, but if it's completely lacking, it is really apparent. And it's the same thing with these sort of connections between the notes and the layering of the notes. It doesn't require a huge amount, but if it's missing, it really, really distracts. And so I compare it sometimes a little bit to speaking. If you speak completely monotone like this without any sort of inflections in your speech, it becomes very, very apparent, right? And it sounds really silly. We don't have to have huge dramatic inflections, but if they're completely missing, it sounds very, very strange. And so, while I think he has a good grasp of the technique, and I don't notice any sort of problems rhythmically or hitting the right notes or anything like that, I think he could do a lot more with the layering of the sound, with finding more interesting colors, with showing the meter of this piece and the way that we have sort of a sense of different variations over this same melody, and really bringing that out, thinking a bit more about what's actually going on in the music and not just playing the notes on the page. So I hope you've learned a little something about piano playing from this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.